All right, folks, very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. Thank you for joining us here. This is the Telerik R3 2021 release webinar. We like to close out things strong, so like the year. So this is a big release, and we're going to spend the next 2 hours kind of diving into all the goodness, particularly for .NET developers. So it's going to be a lot of exciting stuff across web, mobile, and desktop. So we are your hosts today. Let's see if my mouse is working. There you go. So I am Sam Basu, and with me I have my good friend, Ed Charbeneau. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Sam. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Well, I have a little sore throat, but I'm powering through. So Ed and me are both dev advocates here at Progress Telerik, and while you see the two of us on screen for the webinars, there are a lot of folks in the back rooms supporting us. So product engineers, PMs. So ask away your questions. And the way we're going to do this in the next 2 hours is we're going to let Ed do all of the web stuff. He's our resident web expert for the first hour, while I take on mobile and desktop in the next hour. So let's get started. We are all about developer productivity. If you don't know us, I mean, if you're new to the Telerik UI family, welcome. And if you have been using our stuff, hopefully you see that every release we are trying to give you more to make you more successful in whatever apps you are building across .NET, across JavaScript, and all of our productivity suites we have. So we actually had the release about 10 days back, and last week we actually spent some time kind of going over the release. So this is a question we had for you in case any of you want to just chime in the chat. Please let us know if you knew about what this was last week, because we changed things up a little bit. We did kind of an informal walkthrough and kind of diving deep into some of the new stuff that came out for the release. So all of last week we spent like an hour, 2 hours each day diving into what's new in Telerik and UI families. So we think we saw many of you on our Twitch channels, twitch.tv coded live, but let us know in chat if you knew about this and we can change it up. We had some engineers come on board with us, so it was a lot of fun. And we'll keep on, we would like to keep on doing more of this, so please let us know if you knew about this or if you want more of this, where we kind of actually use the controls. We dive in deep into some of the stuff that's in every release. So this release,
just like with those videos and the one that you're watching now, those are available on our YouTube channel if you did miss them. And if you get disconnected for some reason, or you have to, go to a meeting, you can always find our webinar on our YouTube channel as well.
Absolutely. Now, this release, in the spirit of kind of changing things up, we actually went to the dark side first. It's not the dark side. It's just all things JavaScript. We actually had the UI webinar yesterday, and a lot of you showed up because this is the reality for lots of enterprises where you do .NET, but then you do your front end in JavaScript. So we had our teams go over all things Angular, jQuery, React, and Vue. So that was yesterday. And again, like Ed said, the videos should be up right away in YouTube. And this is today and tomorrow. Now we're diving into all things .NET. So we have a 2-hour slot. Ed's going to start us off with all things web. So that's the first hour. Then I take on things with Xamarin, MAUI, and all of the desktop technologies. So it should be fun. And we'll be back right here tomorrow. Another 2-hour slot. We can't cover all of those things all together because there's just a lot across our product lines. So tomorrow we're going to focus on reporting and testing and Fiddler and JustWalk. So it should be fun to come and have you come and join us tomorrow as well. So like Ed said, we do record everything. They are going up straight on our YouTube channels. And this is also your opportunity. You're spending an hour, 2 hours with us. So ask away your questions. There's a Q&A panel where you can ask and we will answer. If you're on social media, particularly on Twitter, use the hashtag #HeyTelerik so we can get back to you even after the webinar. So we'll leave a breadcrumb trail. So please participate. We will have a few kind of polls along the way just to kind of keep things interactive. But let's talk about R3. This, like I said, we like to close out the year strong. So this is a big release. And every product team takes the time to write up all the new and cool stuff that's in the release. So check everything out at blogs.telerik.com. Find the product that you are most caring or the one that you're using, but also look around some of the other stuff. Like today, you're going to see, like most of you have Telerik DevCraft, which is a full suite of products across web and mobile and desktop and productivity. So look around at some of the other stuff. Even though maybe you're not using it, it'll spark some ideas as to how you can use it within your application stacks. So yeah, check out all the details at the blog site. And like I said, the release went out, I think 16th of this month. So it's been out. So go get the hot bits. A lot of things we are going to show and talk about today, you're not going to see them unless you have the updated release bits. So however you get your stuff, NuGet packages, NPM, getting it through the control panel, or just plain downloads, get the stuff, right? That's how it's going to light up the R3 release. All right, and like we always say, we care about your experiences. We are all developers, and we care about your experiences. So your how you get things started with our docs, and how you play around with our stuff with the demos, and then feedback.telerik.com. That's your portal to tell us all the things. So our PMs and our engineers can look at that every day and plan our next releases accordingly. So please keep talking to us. And one last thing I will say before we head over to the web stuff is last release, and this is continuing work, we have been pouring in a lot of love in our forums. So if you are, don't ever be stuck using our stuff. There's more than likely somebody else has experienced the same thing. So ask questions, answer questions, and this is gamified a little bit so you get reputation. So come and hang out with us in our forums. All right, so with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Ed. Talk about all things.
All right, Sam, thank you for the wonderful introduction as always. And
there we go. You are, not yet. There you go. Now
there we go. So let me just confirm this, and everybody should be able to see my screen.
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. It wasn't notifying me that it was available yet. All right, so I'm going to cover everything I can, all things web for our Telerik products today. So that suite of products includes a lot of your favorite .NET technologies. So ASP.NET AJAX, MVC, ASP.NET Core, and of course, Telerik UI for Blazor. You'll also hear me mention Telerik document processing, and Sam will as well, because this is a document processing library that is available with all of our control suites. So you can do Office document manipulation and creation on the fly. We've updated that in this release as well, so keep your eye out for that one. Before we get too far into the presentation here, we have a poll question for you all to see where you're at with the choices you're making of the web stack that you're choosing for development.
Yeah, and Ed, to me, this is interesting as to how the web stack has changed. Like, I'm an old man, like going back to web form and MVC and Razor pages and seeing everything evolve to Blazor now. It's fun. You have a lot of choice.
We have a lot of choice. We also have a lot of applications that are already out there in the wild. So there's quite a large pool of customers that are coming to us from many different dev needs and scenarios where you're still using AJAX, but maybe you're looking to see what to greenfield next. There's lots of interesting avenues that you can take these days.
Absolutely. All right, so going once, going twice, and yep, there we go. Okay, this was kind of expected, right? So a lot of you want to do the latest and coolest things with Blazor, but the reality again is a lot of ASP.Core and MVC. Yeah.
Lots of core there, which is amazing. So with core, you're getting a lot of performance improvements. That's something that everybody likes to see, and you can get a lot of those performance improvements without necessarily doing code changes, depending on what your previous app was written in. So if you're in a pretty good place where you can migrate to core without breaking changes, you can get some definite speed boosts without having to do a whole lot. Cool stuff.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
Ed, before you start, just a quick mention of
Mhm.
some of the Q&A we're getting. James Mead was asking, or rather mentioning that a lot of folks actually use both or multiple, like MVC Core and Blazor, so you can mix and match. And Larry Liu was asking if we're going to make the slides available. Yeah, we don't mind at all. We'll likely put this up as a blog post or on YouTube, where we can happily provide you a link with that.
And I will give you in the audience a little bit of a heads up. My Q&A panel magically disappeared, and there is no way to re-enable it, so I can't see questions right now. So if you can read some of those out to me when you get them, Sam, and I will
Yeah, I
try
got
to
you covered.
fix it after the break to help you as well. There's always something that happens when you go live. But anyway, on to Telerik UI for AJAX. We have some really great updates in this release that I want to share with you, and we'll do a live demo here in just a moment. So the first one that I'm going to be talking about is support for Web Live Preview. This is a preview of the new technology for Visual Studio that it's kind of the real time, what you see is what you get type of editor. It does it in the browser, which is really cool. And you can, it's better demoed, I think, than it is talked about. So we'll just dive into that one in a moment. Another huge one is the date range picker. This is one of my favorite components. You've probably heard me say this before. I know Sam has. I love the date range picker because anytime you have to build a report or you're building some type of scheduling application, maybe you're picking date ranges for travel and that sort of thing, you have to take two independent date boxes and wire those things up and do validation and all that stuff across them. That's where the date range picker comes in really handy because it gives you all of that functionality out of the box. So you can tweak this to whatever scenario you need it for, but essentially you can pick a start date and an end date. You can disable dates around that system. Again, you can customize it to fit your needs, but it really gives you a nice compact view for your users to be able to select those date ranges. Super handy component. We also have improvements across many of our components again. Especially our data grid is one of our most popular components. So you'll always see updates around those data grids. And again, improvements around the document processing libraries. This is going to go into all of our component libraries. So you'll see me repeat this a little bit today. But if you're doing any kind of spreadsheet generation, converting docs to PDFs for your users to download or save to the server, all those scenarios you can handle with document processing.
So Ed, just to
So,
add on to that,
yeah,
the document processing libraries are a big deal because enterprises need that, and that's all a .NET standard library for us. So whatever we do, it benefits every product suite. So you will see the same things across like mobile and desktop as well.
yeah. So at its core, it's very much the same for all platforms. There are some nuances here and there, depending on if you're using it in Xamarin or on the web, on the server, on the client, etc. But you will find it in all of those component libraries. It's really an amazing product that I've used myself for things. It's really cool. Telerik UI for AJAX demo. Let's jump back over to the desktop here, come out of slides for just a moment, and talk about this new Web Live preview that we've been collaborating with Microsoft on. So we work very closely with the Microsoft teams. In this case, we're talking about integration with Visual Studio. We have a wonderful blog post on blogs.telerik.com that you can find talking about this brand new feature and how to enable it in Visual Studio and work with it in your projects. So I want to kind of demo this for a moment. I've got a Telerik AJAX application here, and I'm going to live edit this this page for the application using Web Live Preview in the browser. So I've got a solution here. This is our Telerik Mail demo application that you can install using the File New Project dialogues. And if I right-click on my editor window, you can see I've got a new context menu that says Edit in Browser right here. So if I go and click on that menu item, the application is going to load inside of the browser, and I've got a toolbar down here at the bottom of the screen, and this lets me navigate the HTML structure, and I can also enable and disable the real-time tooling here that I'm going to show you. So if I click on individual elements within the application, you can see it's giving me the HTML elements, and I can even click on the components. For example, I can click on the grid, and I can get a context menu based on that component. So for example, with the data grid, I can come in here and change various aspects of my component. So if you look on my, this is one of those things I think I can't, my hotkey for zooming closes the menu. So I can't really zoom in here, but if you can't read these on stream, I can enable and disable some of the features on the grid. So I can enable paging or disable paging just by clicking on these checkboxes within the UI here. I can also come in and, for example, it says Telerik webmail right here. Let's go ahead and make a change to this. Let's see if we can do this on the fly. I'm going to come in and type in Ed's webmail. And all of this time I've been making these changes. If I go jump back to Visual Studio, you can see that the Web Live preview has gone over to the source file and updated that piece of text. And it now says Ed's webmail within the markup. And this gives me a real-time editing experience for my application within the browser. So there's cross communication between the browser and Visual Studio, and I can make really quick edits in here, and I know how these things are going to render. I don't need to keep going back to my source code and refreshing the application and so on. So this is like hot reload, but then even more advanced than hot reload. And this is something that Microsoft is taking feedback back on right now, and we're collaborating with them. So if you have feedback, we'll make sure you let us hear it as well, because we can funnel that information back to the teams at Microsoft. They are looking at possibilities of further down the road, not this year, but for much further on, possibly bringing something like this to Blazor or .NET Core. So this is really interesting tech, and something I think that WebForms developers are already familiar with. So that's one of the main reasons that Microsoft is starting with the WebForms and AJAX libraries, is because this is a very familiar experience, right? Sam, you've done WebForms before. We're used to these WYSIWYG editors.
Yeah, and then the good thing is you do your stuff on the web and it brings it right back to your code.
Yeah, and we have support here for our Telerik components. So again, we work very closely with Microsoft, and we're able to give you this type of a thing very early on in the preview stage of this Web Live preview feature. So it's been really amazing to see the collaborative effort between our teams and theirs. They've been very open with us about what they want to accomplish here, and we've been able to help them. And again, we can help funnel feedback from our customers to them as well.
Ed, while you're switching on to the next thing, just a quick shout out. So John Lord in the chat room was asking about the timelines for today's thing. So like I said, broadly, it's first hour is all things web, second hour is mobile and desktop. And I think within the hours, I think Ed likes to go AJAX, Core, MVC, and then Blazor. And I would like to go maybe MAUI, Xamarin, WinUI, WPF, WinForms. So like that's the order.
I always like to get some attention to our long, most, what do you call it, stable product first. So AJAX has been around for almost 20 years. Can you believe that, Sam? Almost 20 years now. So I like to bring it up front and center, and then kind of progress through the newer tech as we go along. And if you're already a Telerik customer, you may be familiar with this demo page, but I'm at demos.telerik.com. If you're new to the Telerik products, make sure you visit our demo pages. There are some really amazing demos. a lot of the stuff that you see me do on live streams or just the code that I write in general, a lot of it's poached from here, I'll be honest. Like I go to the demos, I copy paste, I edit from there. Enough said, right? So go to demos.telerik.com, look for the green badges, and this is going to tell you all about the new things that we've added to this suite in the last release. So again, DateRangePicker, we can see this in action. We can pick up the start and end ranges here, and we get that nice UI where it fills in all of those spaces, all of the dates in between those two numbers, and then we get individual boxes with the start and end dates on them. This is something that I've had to write so many times for applications. So it is awesome to see a one-shot component. Just drop it in your app, and you get both those start and end dates right out of the box. Very cool stuff. So let's move on to Telerik UI for MVC and Core. So I'm going to kind of batch these two together. For all intents and purposes, everything that you see in MVC is also in Core. The only thing that Core has that kind of differentiates itself from MVC is the fact that it has tag helpers. So that is a .NET Core feature. So you get additional tag helpers versus just the HTML helpers from MVC. With Core, you get both. So we've got several new components in this release. These are real heavy hitters too. We've got the OrgChart, the Captcha component. So if you want to test and make sure your users are in fact real humans, you can do that with the Captcha component. We have a Heatmap. I'll take a look at that one in the demos in a moment. The Popover component's really cool. I've been really creative with that type of thing in the past. Those are really fun to use, create really unique UIs with. And we have support for Bootstrap 5. You'll see this on our Blazor library as well. And then we'll talk about Figma kits here at the end. But we do have Figma kits enabled or available for our MVC, Core, and Blazor, and all of our Kendo UI products as well. Lots and lots of updates in this release. I had to actually cut some of these slides short. We have updates to our form, our grid, our pager component, multi-select. Again, our document processing libraries are updated as well. And then I'll show on demos.telerik.com, we've actually updated some of our theme interactions on the demo pages as well. So let's take a look at our Telerik UI for MVC and Core. I'm going to jump back out to the browser for a moment. And let's again take a look at these lovely green badges. This is where all the new goodies are at. The heat map. This is a charting type of a component. This lets you display data in some really interesting ways. It's a really well thought out component as well, as I'll show. There's some really interesting features as to how you can drill down into this data. So for example, if we go to the pan and zoom example here, using my mouse wheel, I know you can't see my hands on my mouse and keyboard, but all I'm doing is just using my scroll wheel on my mouse, and I can zoom in, drill into this data. So this is a really nice way to interact with this type of thing. And I can also grab and pan throughout the data as well. So all this is just built into the component, and I just need to turn this feature on or off. And if you want to see the source code for any of these examples, just click on the View Source Code tab. And that nice big bright component that you saw on the page with all that information on it, just explained with a simple HTML helper here. And we have tag helpers for this as well. So if you want to see what a tag helper version of that looks like, we new up a Kendo chart. And again, this is a charting type of a component, and then we define a series for that heat map chart. So cool stuff there. We have data binding available. You can control the coloring of these items. We also have crosshairs and markers for these. So you can, again, further enhance that UX with this heat map component. So awesome component there. I think that one's really cool if people find really creative uses for it. Next up, Captcha. If you want to check and make sure you have humans on the other end of that form, the Captcha component, I'm sure everybody out there has filled out a form online and has seen one of these before. So basically, you have to type in the nuclear launch codes that you see there in the window and confirm that this is indeed a person behind the wheel. And I'm terrible at these. I'm part robot, so I failed that one. We've got a popover component. These are really cool for doing kind of interactive pieces with your UI, where you want to show additional data, maybe have some type of interaction here with some element on screen. So you can design these nice popover elements to expand the user experience there. And again, tag helpers are available for those as well. So we can write those up using tags and attributes instead of HTML helpers, or you can rely on the old school HTML helpers if you're more familiar with those. These things are template available too, or templateable. So you can embed your own templates inside of these popover elements. So they're completely customizable. You can drop images in those and do what you wish. And of course, you can tie into events as well, and there's a nice API available to do what you need to do with these. And last but not least, save the best for last, right, Sam? This is a very detailed org chart that you can embed in your applications. And the amount of control that you have over such a complex component like this, it just blows my mind what our engineers are able to do with HTML and CSS. So we have an org chart that not only you can expand and collapse elements in, but there is grouping and grouping by parent. So you can see you get a nice organized set of elements here that you can collapse together, and it's nicely laid out. So you can see that grouping box around these elements here, grouping these two items together. So you can define those groups. You can group by parent as well. So this is very full-featured component that is template driven. So you can include your own templates in these. This is the part that really got me, is there is built-in editing for these as well. So I've got a dialog box that comes up with the kebab menu here. We can click edit, and there's a nice pop-up menu, so I can edit the items inside of that org chart, move things around, change names, add images, etc. So super handy stuff there. We can also do create and delete operations in here as well. So all of this just built into the component. I did not expect that myself when we built this out. I saw the org chart, and when I was able to edit this, I was just mind blown at what we were able to accomplish here.
Ed, so just to give you a pause, and it's interesting that you interchangeably call the hamburger menu a kebab menu as well. Whatever you call it, you have it. So a couple of questions here from the chat room, since you can conveniently not see the questions. Nathan Seifert, if I'm saying that last name right, was asking how resource intensive the live preview thing is, and are there any restrictions? Is it Chromium only, or how does it work?
That is an excellent question. I don't have all the answers to. I know that I'm using Chrome with it. I don't know if it's available for Edge. I do know that under the covers, Edge and Chrome are pretty much the same thing these days. So if it's not available now, it probably won't be too long before it's available on both of those. And as far as performance is concerned, I'm not sure. It is in a preview state, so there's that to keep in mind. So I'm sure whatever performance is there will improve over time. That's been one of the big agendas at Microsoft, especially with the .NET teams and Visual Studio teams, is performance. So I haven't noticed anything. I do have a fairly well-equipped rig though. So let's just say that. I'm not gonna probably notice too many performance issues on the equipment that I have. The lights do dim a little bit sometimes when I turn it on, but other than that, I think it's fine.
Oh, Ed likes to brag about his computers. All right, so Tony Denga here in the chat room, and I think most of these questions may have already been answered, but I'm just trying to pick the ones that we can like talk through. Excuse me. So Tony was asking if it's always necessary to update to the latest version, and I believe the question pertains to like the Telerik bits. So no, you don't have to, Tony, but most of you who use Telerik DevCraft, like you get it for a year, and we do like 3 major releases every year. And as you will see with some of the desktop and mobile products, we also do like sub releases, like service packs in between. So for a year, you get all of the cool stuff, and beyond that, it's yours to keep. But if you don't update, then you don't get the fancy things that we are working on. So.
I also see, can a PDF, I finally got it back, by the way. Can a PDF be generated from the org chart? That's one, I can't quite see the whole question here. So I don't know.
That is our question, yeah.
Yeah, did the engineers answer that one yet?
I'm trying to see, or yeah, we'll get back.
I don't know why I'm getting cut off here, but I can only see the question and nothing else, which is still an improvement from what I did have. But I don't know what our engineers have answered, but I know just creatively thinking here on the fly, if I jump back into the UI for core here, you do have the ability to pretty much screen grab anything in the DOM and put that in an image, which then can be embedded in a PDF. There may be easier ways to do that, but hopefully we've got an answer from our engineers that know these things far more in depth than I do. But I'm going to say, just creatively speaking, I bet I could do it, just because I know how versatile our tools are. I could probably get that screenshotted into a PDF manually using the Kendo drawing APIs. So a link to those Kendo drawing APIs is probably something that you can search very easily within the documentation and find. I know I've written an article or 2 on it as well at our blogs. So you can do all types of exporting with the Kendo drawing APIs. It's super powerful stuff. All right, Sam, and it's also worth noting as I move into Blazor here that our Telerik UI components for ASP.NET Core and Blazor are compatible with .NET 6 release candidate. So we've been keeping up with all of the previews. I've been dogfooding those myself as well. Our engineering teams are all over the new bits, and we have been testing these things with the latest previews. So we are compatible with the latest versions of .NET 6, and we're looking forward to the release in November. So we're kind of looking forward to .NET Conf. We feel pretty comfortable with the fact that .NET 6 is coming. So make sure you check that stuff out. Let's talk a little bit about Telerik UI for Blazor. So it's one of our newer UI libraries, something that I've been working on for the last several years, and it's a very exciting new platform to be doing web development on. So you get to write all of your web applications without using JavaScript. So you can use .NET right in the browser. It's very cool technology. We have lots of new components for this new library. One that our customers have highly requested, I think they covered this in the Kendo UI for Angular webinar as well. It's another component that, like the grid, doesn't matter if you're using Angular, Blazor, React, all of those things, people are asking for these popular components like the Gantt chart and the grid. So the Gantt chart is here and available for use in Telerik UI for Blazor. So thank you all for the suggestions and helping us build our roadmap and getting that one shipped in this release. Our breadcrumb component is here. We'll take a look at that. That's another one that's, again, highly customizable. We have a carousel component. I'll talk about that a little bit more detail in the demo. Our barcode component. Barcodes. We could go on and on about barcodes. We did this on our live stream, had a pretty in-depth discussion. I probably taught Sam a little bit more about barcodes than he ever cared to know. Myself, coming from a manufacturing background, have used all too many barcodes, but this is huge in the manufacturing world. Anytime you have to interact with outside systems, print labels, put them on things that are going to ship or be used across a warehouse, barcodes are the way to go. So we have a barcode component for Blazor now to help you get those Blazor components built for manufacturing and commercial uses. We have a stack and grid layout. I'll show a demo of this with the barcode component. That's a pretty cool one. We have the stepper and wizard components. And again, I have more demos on these too. The stepper and wizard, great for building complex forms and processes that you need to have multiple steps in completing, so you don't overload your user with tons and tons of data at once. You could put those in separate panels and allow them to step through and do validation. We'll get into the details in the demo of that. Lots of updates here, several pages of updates. And then there were even more that didn't make it to the presentation. So make sure you go to telerik.com and check out what's new in Telerik UI for Blazor, because there are things I'm going to not have time for. We've updated the grid. We've got keyboard navigation with our column virtualization and much, much more. Delete confirmation is built in now. That's something that I've demoed in the past. It's just really nice to have, so you don't have to build that feature in yourself. We give it to you out of the box. The pager's been updated for the grid, tree list, and list view components. So we have like a go-to page input box, and a page size drop-down list has been added to that. The scheduler received updates again. So our data grid, our Gantt chart, our scheduler, these are very heavy components that have lots of features to them. And these are things that we're going to be adding all sorts of features to over time. So scheduler got resource grouping, delete confirmation, header templates, context menu events, all sorts of great stuff. We'll take a look at that as well. Tree list got updates. The tree list and the data grid share a lot of DNA together, so you'll see a lot of updates that kind of align with each other in regards to these components. So these are features that you see in the data grid in this release as well. And then all of our input components got a focus method that you can use. Support for the release candidate, I mentioned this earlier. So this includes Telerik UI for Blazor components. We are able to run these in hybrid applications using MAUI. Sam, I know you'll be touching on MAUI. We can chat a little bit more about this when you get ready to talk about your MAUI bits. Well, we don't have any demos of this that I can show you quite yet. You can run this, but we'll have to have like another live stream or something about these hybrid applications. It's just such a big topic. We can't fit it into just one webinar. We only have 2 hours, if that sounds like madness. And then, of course, our Figma kits. I'll show you an example of those. If you want to check them out, they are free to access at figma.com/progress. So if you want to just load that up in the browser, take a look at what a Figma kit looks like, you can see those there. I don't even think you need an account to view those. So check those out. And of course, we have support for Bootstrap 5 in Telerik UI for MVC, Core, and Blazor. So if you're upgrading to the latest version of Bootstrap, you can do that comfortably with our components. We also support Bootstrap 4 as well, so it's not like we're dropping support for anything here. We're just adding on new support for the latest version. Let's see, are we ready for our poll question, or do you want me to get into? Oh, looks like we're ready for it, and then we'll get into some live demos.
So this is a good question, and this is kind of trying to evaluate where you folks are and what you're seeing with .NET MAUI and the Blazor being put into a web view. So yeah, let us know your plans. All we can say for now is we are very actively looking at this, working with Microsoft.
Yeah, so we'll have to post-November do a show all about hybrid apps, I think. We'll know more information publicly about hybrid apps by then. I know we're privy to some things that aren't quite in the know yet, Sam, so it'll be really interesting to see how this poll progresses over time as people get introduced to the idea of using Blazor in a desktop scenario and the benefits that you get from wrapping a Blazor application with a WinUI or WPF shell.
Yeah, so going once, going twice, there you go. So that's the responses, and yeah, it's a mixed bag, and that's kind of what we expect. So if you're doing web and you're happy with your web applications, keep at it. But if you have any interest in bringing it over to desktop or mobile, for that matter, yeah, just like Ed said, just keep a lookout on how that landscape is changing.
I see some questions coming in that sound like they this is an excellent place to ask those type of questions, but they also sound like they could be great things to post on feedback.telerik.com. So I see one in here about when will we have drag resizing for the Telerik window component for Blazor. And they say it sounds like it should be really useful and would love to have it. So at feedback.telerik.com, you can post these items and they can be upvoted, and those upvotes really help us build our roadmaps. But we also have our engineers and our PM here to answer those questions for you, and we do take that feedback from this channel as well. But on feedback.telerik.com, you have the ability to upvote things, and that gives us even more information that we can base those roadmaps on. So thank you for that. So let's take a look.
Folks were also liking the OrgChart, Ed, and there were demands to get the OrgChart in Blazor. So yeah, let us know.
I believe that OrgChart is on our roadmap. I don't have a date for that, but I do believe it is on our roadmap. Let's see here. Let's get into, let me make sure I have the right application here. This is a dog fooding project that I run called Blazeport. You may have seen it on our webinars before and on my live stream. So this is a quote unofficial progress demo application, but it could one day be an official app that we share with you all. It is up on GitHub if you want to use it at your own risks there. But this is where I dog food things. So, you know, things may break. This is not the most stable GitHub project in the world, but it is a really cool one that I like to share demos on because this is where I'm trying out all the new components that we have and new features that Microsoft brings to Blazor. So I'm going to give this a run and show some of the components that I mentioned in the new releases here. So let this get up and running. So this is the Blazeport application. So first of all, I'm going to start a new trip here. So we're going to book some space flight. We're doing that booking through a Telerik form, and there's many Telerik components in this Telerik form. So we have our dropdown, our date picker, so we can select a date. We can choose the number of passengers. We can choose our destination. Gotta love the templating in these Telerik dropdown boxes that we have. We can actually put spinning planets and all sorts of cool stuff within these dropdown boxes. And then we'll go ahead and submit this form, and we'll get our our nice dashboard built with our Telerik libraries as well. I'm going to click Book Now. When I click Book Now, this is a Telerik window with a Telerik wizard component in it. So the Telerik wizard component gives me that stepwise form that I was talking about. So we can display some trip summary information on the first page. Then we can navigate. Look at the top here as I navigate through. This is our stepper component that's built into the wizard component. So if I'm using the wizard component, this is built in. If I want to use the stepper by itself, I can use that separately as well. I'm going to select a couple seats here for my trip. We'll hit next. Do we want to upgrade our trip, Sam? Do you want to take a scenic helicopter tour when you visit Mars?
Why not? It's one way anyway, so might as well.
Okay. Might as well. It's only $4,500, and I've got a nice Telerik toggle button here that I can click and add this to my trip. We'll go through the next thing here, and we've got boxes for payment information. I didn't finish coding that yet, so we're just gonna skip over that and hit next. Oh, I've got a confirmation and a ticket to print. It doesn't look very nice. I could use some better layout for the ticket information. So I've got things that are kind of just falling in a single line here. So we'll go ahead and line these up, but I've got my new Telerik barcode component here. So I can get a ticket that I can scan when I'm ready to leave for Mars, because nothing says high-tech space travel like scanning a barcode. So we'll use this to board our flight, but we need to be able to view that a little bit better. So I've kind of staged a demo here to show how our new layout components work. Let me get some of these guys pinned away so we can get a better view of the code that's behind this booking page. So if we look at our booking component, this is our Telerik wizard. So our Telerik wizard has wizard steps, and in each step, you can see there is some content for each of those steps. And this can be HTML content. This is just my display kind of repeating that trip data and just confirming that we have our trip summary. So we're taking data from our model and kind of doing some binding, just displaying that on the screen. That content can also be component-based. So I have a little bit of a mix here of some HTML, and then I have a seat selection. This is a custom component just for selecting those seats that I built, and so on. We'll go ahead and move down to show there's some more steps here that are just been abstracted away into components. So let's take a look at that boarding pass component. Take a look at the boarding pass, and you can see I've staged a little demo for you all. This is just the div elements that make up that ticket information. So we have our flight number, date, boarding time, gate, and so on. And what I'm going to do is use the Telerik grid layout to help me create a layout that looks a little bit more like what we saw in the demo here, or in the slides here. So I want to put the flight number, the date, the boarding time, all of that in a nice layout so it looks like a boarding pass. If we take a look at the details of this, this is a grid layout. If I take a look here, I've got 1, 2, 3, this would be 4 columns. And I've got 2 rows here. And we've got an item at the end here that's spanning row 1 and row 2, like so. So let's build that out using our Telerik components. So I'll jump back over to Visual Studio, and so you don't have to watch me type this all out. I've got these commented in here. First thing we need to do is bring in our Telerik grid layout. So we'll bring in our Telerik grid layout component, make sure our ending tag is properly defined. And then we've got to define the actual grid itself. So I'm going to bring in a grid row layout rows. And in this definition, I have a row with a fraction, or a height of 1 fraction, and I have a second row with a height of 1 fraction. So this fractional element is a CSS value. You could use pixels, you could use rems, ems, all of the CSS units here. The 1 fraction is a newer unit that you may not be familiar with, but essentially it says it's a ratio. So if this is a 1-to-1 ratio, I get 2 rows at 50% roughly. If I were to add a third one there, it'd be like 33% and so on. The next thing I want to do is create the columns. So I'm going to define the grid layout columns, and I'm going to use that same fractional value here, but I want 4 columns of equal width is basically what I'm saying here. So I want 4 columns, each of those to be 1 fraction wide. Once I have that grid defined, I can start placing items in it. So in here, I'm just going to place my grid layout items, and then the item will contain whatever component or HTML that I want to render inside that grid cell. So I'll go through each one of my data points and bring in a grid layout item, like so. Bring all of these ticket items in here. And then
Ed,
finally,
while you're typing away, we got a comment here in the chat room that fills my heart with joy. The grid layout kind of looks like XAML.
it does. That's on purpose. So that's a great comment. That is very much on purpose, Sam. So what we found out through customer feedback, I had a great call with a customer personally, and they suggested that we have this type of component because they have a lot of developers that are coming from Silverlight and WPF. They're like, we're really, loving Blazor, but we're having a hard time laying things out. We're just not that familiar with CSS code. We'd love to see a component that helps describe the layouts. So we can do this all within our component markup. And we went back and forth with some ideas, and we decided to go with something that really mimics that Xamarin Forms experience. So if you're coming from Xamarin Forms, you feel familiar with this component and laying something out. In addition to the Telerik grid, we also have a stack layout. So it's very much like a stack panel component that you would find in Xamarin. So great observation there, totally intentional. And you can see I've got my grid, but it's not quite right yet. So why is that, Sam? We've got our 4 columns here, and then the barcode is taking up a column. But what I'd really like it to do is span across a couple rows, and I also want to move it over to the end of the display here. So what I can actually do is come in and define that additional information, and I'll change this row span here and give it the number of rows that I'd like this element to span, the column number I'd like it to show in, and the row number that I'd like it to appear in as well. And when I save that, you can see it moves over to the end here. So what's really cool about this feature is if I want to move the barcode to the front of this grid, all I have to do is tell it where to start. And using these coordinates here, I can say, go ahead and start at column 1, row 1. I'll hit save again, and live reload's helping me out here. I can move that wherever I'd like within that grid. So it's very much a grid-based layout that I have full control over and can easily use to make nice layouts in my application. Another thing that's really nice about these properties here that we can set row, column numbers, span numbers, etc. on is we can data bind to these things. So we can take data from a database, and depending on how many items I just pulled in, I can rearrange those in certain ways, do calculations to find these numbers and where I want to put them within the grid layout. So very cool stuff. Very handy component. We've got our barcode in there now. We've got the wizard. So that's a lot of new components that I just shared inside of that demo. We can jump over to our Blazor page here for a moment as well, and just show again all of these new items here. We've got further Telerik reporting integration. We've got our barcode that I just showed. We've got our breadcrumb navigation. Again, this is something that is very customizable. We can set different separators. We can use templates. The collapse modes is really cool. So depending on how many items we have, we can decide how to collapse these items and show or hide the pertinent information here, so you don't overwhelm the user. So these are all things that we thought of that would help make this component easier to use for user experience. So we have collapsible templates, so you can use Comic Sans. Please don't do that. All sorts of great stuff in that as well. So again, demos.telerik.com. You'll find updates to our Gantt components here. And you can play around with all of these things and check out the source code on how to build those out. Again, I find myself here a lot. You saw, let's go to the barcode demo real quick, just to show you where I'm in here fishing around for examples. This boarding pass looks super familiar, doesn't it, Sam? Yeah, so I cherry picked some things that I like from here, and I use those in my projects. So I'm sure you'll find things useful here as well. Before we wrap up, I'm going to take a quick jump over to figma.com/@progress, where you'll find those Figma kits. So if you have UX people and designers on your team, share this with them. Let us know how they like these Figma kits. I'm not a Figma expert by any means. We have one on the team that is new to the team, and she is going to give me some coaching on how all of this works. I dove into this very briefly just to see how this all looks. If you jump into the actual Figma kit, it's very cool because it gives you a drill down of all of the component pieces. And you can see under this grid construction elements, I've got my toolbar when I add items to a toolbar. All the individual things that you see in your data grid is in here. And you can click on these and drill into the information and get SAS values, for example. If I wanted to style these, I could see all of the SAS values being applied to this element. So I have my primary variable and so on. So I can go in and customize these elements, and I know what variables are being used, and get familiar with the CSS for these things. It's very, very, very cool stuff. Can't wait to learn more myself.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Like whenever we do something where we are bridging the gap between like designers and developers, and we're kind of tightening the dev loop. A lot of us who are developers only, we don't have the design chops. I mean, we are getting more and more help to kind of get started from a good starting point. Yeah.
We're running up to the end here.
Yeah, well, ahead, your end. The good stuff is about to begin.
Yeah.
So the couple of quick questions here. The wizard, as Elon Musk takes us to Mars, could you use the wizard to navigate? Shannon Dunn was asking in the chat room. Like, could you come back, like on the wizard where you have like the pick your seat, then the payment, and then the barcode? Like, could you use that to navigate?
You can do previous, next, and you can validate steps. So those are really huge things that you already have available to you. I also wanted to answer a question I saw about MVVM in context of Blazor. In my personal experience, Blazor is already very MVVM itself. Putting an MVVM framework on top of it seems a little redundant. That's just my experience. Other people have their opinions on that. But to better answer the question, I want to share a demo on data binding with the grid. And there is an observable data demo here that I would suggest you look at. And observable uses the observable collection. See if I got that right off the top of my head. well, it's just observable collection. I thought it was an interface, but observable collection of T. And internally within the grid, you can consider this, its own MVVM implementation here. So whenever I add an item or remove an item from the grid, it just automatically is updating that data. And this is super helpful, especially if you have like a good scenario is some signal R data coming in, right? And you want the grid to update. Push that into an observable collection, assign that to the data grid's data source, and it's going to automatically add and remove and update those elements for you without you having to write extra code. So before you dive headfirst into like trying to get MVVM working in the context of Blazor, try out some of the features that are already there and see where you can add those MVVM tools to improve the code that you're writing. Right. And then one last one, and then I'll hand it over to you, Sam. Excellent question on the barcodes. We do have encoding for various formats on those barcodes. So yes, there are many, many codes here. I know there's an extensive amount of codes in the industry. So we do have you covered in that respect. So we do have the ability to choose between that. If you go to demos.telerik.com, click on barcodes and encodings, you will see that in the demo where you can choose the drop-down boxes and see how you can set those different encodings there. With that, Sam, I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor. Right. Thank you all for joining me for my segment. And you may see me go off camera for just a minute to adjust my setting here at the office.
All right, so looks like you can see my screen. Yeah, and okay, we're up. All right, so that was Ed, Mr. Ed Charbeneau, our resident expert, talking about all things cool for web applications, and it's a lot of good stuff. It's a lot of good stuff across, web forms to MVC and core and all the way to Blazor. But as much as Ed would like us to go write everything for the web, there's a place for native apps. There's a place for enterprise workflows, which are mostly on desktop, mostly on mobile, right? So let's dive into some of that good stuff. And I have a little less than an hour, so let's see how far we can get. I do apologize if you see me coughing. I'm trying to fight off a bad cold, but we'll see. I might talk a little slower than normal, which might be a good thing. Okay, let's start with mobile, okay, and then we'll get to desktop. So I want to actually start with Telerik UI for .NET MAUI because this is very exciting. Do not go write production apps with this yet, but just to kind of showcase that we are on the bleeding edge, making sure we are as ready as we can be once .NET 6 comes out. But before we go into our stuff, just a quick update here. If you have not kept up with all the things that are MAUI, MAUI essentially is multi-platform app UI, and it's the next evolution of Xamarin Forms, which is what we love for building truly native cross-platform apps. There are some pain points in the story right now, so they're trying to fix that, evolve that, and give you more confidence with .NET MAUI being a part of .NET. But a couple of quick updates here in terms of the timelines. You may have seen these posts from Microsoft. Essentially, in November of 2021, you are going to have .NET 6 ship. We are at RC1, Release Candidate 1 build, but along with it are also a lot of the pieces that .NET MAUI needs, because MAUI is going to be able to support from a single code base, like truly a single solution and a project structure, multiple platforms. We can start with 4 major ones, iOS, Android, which are given, but we are reaching the desktop with much more confidence with WinUI getting you to Windows and Mac Catalyst getting you to Mac OS. For those pieces to kind of come together, it needs a lot of tooling help. So Visual Studio 2022 is also being worked on. We are at preview 4, and that's what you're going to get. But also on the other things like Android is coming out with new bits. Apple just came out with iOS 15 and Xcode 13. So a lot of moving pieces that all need to come together. And for developers to have a true cross-platform experience, be it on Windows, be it on Mac, a lot of those pieces need to be in place. So they are running a little behind. So as of this point, .NET MAUI is not going to be shipping with .NET 6 this November, but a lot of the framework and fundamental pieces will ship with it, just the tooling is catching up. So that MAUI GA, general availability date, has been pushed out to Q2 of next year. So sometime in early spring is what we shall see, but none of the promise goes away. It is exactly the promise, and it's a big promise, so it needs a little bit of work to kind of get this right? But having said that, if you want to tinker and if you want to look ahead at .NET MAUI and consider how you want to migrate your mobile apps, so you're hitting multiple platforms, and how you want to modernize your applications, this is a good place to kind of start playing around and looking at how we are looking at things with .NET MAUI. So about a few months back, we had released the first bits for Telerik UI for .NET MAUI. This is still in early preview. So we actually had a release and a blog post that went up yesterday, just to kind of show you how cutting edge this is. We are working on the absolute latest. Now I'll love to show you some demos of this. This is running on .NET 6 RC1. This is running on .NET MAUI Preview 8. And for the first time, we also have full desktop support. So the same code, the same UI, and I will pause because to me this is a big deal. For the first time, you are seeing controls from us that work seamlessly across iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac, right? So mobile and desktop together. So that's a beautiful story, and we are very excited about it. So it's still an early preview. You can go and play with it and see how we are thinking about it. This is very, very exciting for us, and I would love to show you some of these UI in action. Okay, but I'm going to wait until I can show you all of the mobile stuff together for some demos. But this is the reality. This is the present for us. This is Telerik UI for Xamarin, and just like what Microsoft is doing, we are following along with the timelines. So I do mention some of these things because Xamarin is a big ecosystem to kind of get into. There is Xamarin iOS, Xamarin Android. Those things are evolving into .NET for iOS and .NET for Android. But then we also have things that are for Xamarin Forms, which is the abstracted UI. Be it in XAML, be it in C#, you have an abstracted UI layer that renders native UI on every platform. And for us, we will support Xamarin Forms much beyond what Microsoft will do. And you get all of the benefits. This is the reality. We always look ahead at the future, but sometimes we don't stop and maybe smell the roses. This is nice because what we have right now is working seamlessly between Windows or Mac, whatever be your dev machine. We have beautiful integrations inside of Visual Studio. So we have all of our UI is available to you in the toolbox. You can bring our bits in. You can start with some templates or bring it in with some NuGet packages. If you are making some screens that are kind of common and shared, like a authentication screen or about us, a lot of those things are kind of cookie cutter and done for you. The document processing things that Ed mentioned, those are also there for Xamarin as well as for desktop, and lots of sample apps for you to kind of play around with it. Our goal is to give you the best possible UI. If you're a Xamarin developer, if you're a .NET developer looking to make cross-platform apps, this is what you should be looking at. So what are some new and cool things? We have a brand new data matrix. So Ed kind of talked about this at the very end. The barcode component that we have, it is very, very powerful. We don't want to create 12 different things for different encoding. It is a single barcode, and you change the type of the barcode to render a QR code versus a specific type of barcode with all the encoding, with all the security that you want. So I don't work in the manufacturing or healthcare industries, but this I'm told is very, very popular. So it is a really high data density QR code, and it's you have full control over how you render it, what's the information that you want to encode, and it's just ready for you. One small property change, change the barcode type to data matrix, and that's what you have. So this thing is brand new for UI for Xamarin. Also, our calendar views. These are complex. For anybody who's done any calendar views for iOS or Android, you know the challenges and how difficult it is to have native calendars on iOS or Android that cater to those platforms. And yet, if you wanted it to look generic enough for your app's own styling, you can do that. So the RAD calendar continues to keep on getting updates and love from us. We have a day view, which is essentially how you see your calendar, like what's my schedule like for a given day, and you want to show the user all of their appointments and your schedule for the day. This has been heavily requested in our feedback portals. We were missing a current time indicator as to where you are on that given day. So now we have that. You see that little, let's see where my mouse is. You'll see that little red line here. That's the current time, and you can customize it to look however you want. It's a template, so it kind of shows you where you are in the day and where the appointments are before and after, and you can style it and render it however you want. So the day view gets a big improvement here. Moving forward, rich text editor. A lot of you use it because anytime you have your users typing in something that's rich text, you need a control that can carry all that weight and be able to parse out any kind of garbage and let you focus on just HTML or any type of other rich text that you want to work with. So the RAD rich text editor has been around for some time. We keep on adding more and more features to it. This time around, we are focusing on images, right? Just so you can work with images better. How you can bring in images from maybe the device gallery. So if you're on like a mobile phone, iOS or Android, you should be able to ask for the user's permission and be able to pull images from the device library or work with any other images that you have in the app itself. And once you get to the image, you can add, cut, paste, delete, and resize images with ease. And everything is built in for you. There's a nice little toolbar that has all of the feature built in. So you don't have to do much. You can actually create your own library of images and let the user play with it. So the rich text editor is one of my beloved controls because it's very rich. It's for all the things that you need for rich text processing on your apps. Ed, I see you're back. Let me know if you're if you need me to pause for any questions. But if you are looking to use any of our Xamarin UI, before you even consider putting the UI in your apps, this is one of my favorite places to kind of go and play around. Grab your Apple or your Android or your Windows devices, go to the store and search for Telerik. You're going to find a good collection of sample apps that we have put out. These are real world apps that do real world things, maybe like with fake data, but we use like Azure services, we use MVVM frameworks. So if you, and all of this is open source. So we have like an ERP solution, the CRM, to do and tag it. So the code for all of this is open source. If you wanted to see like a full-blown app written with Telerik UI and some services, that's your best bet to kind of look around and follow the GitHub source links to kind of look through what the app looks like. So we are excited, and we will continue investing and pouring in our love with Telerik UI for Xamarin. All right, demo time.
So quick question, Sam. This might be beyond the scope of the webinar, so feel free to answer however you see fit. But there was a pretty good question here in regards to Xamarin and MAUI. Do you envision any kind of conversion app to get from Xamarin Forms to a MAUI app, or how is that migration path looking?
Yes, that's a great question. Okay, so hopefully you're able to see my my desktop still. So what I'm going to point you, and this is still being worked on, so it's not done yet. So this is actually a great thing for desktop applications, but there is a thing called .NET Upgrade Assistant. If you have, let's see if I can find this somewhere. That's the doc site, and they have this open source on GitHub. So if you have a desktop application today, like not MAUI, not Xamarin, desktop, be it WinForms, or in fact like even web forms as well, if you have it running on .NET Framework, this .NET Upgrade Assistant can move your apps over, like change the SDK style project and move over your DLLs and change the project structure to make it run on .NET Core 3, .NET 5, and then even .NET 6, right? So this is very, very good, and this is the one that they're actually looking at for you to migrate from Xamarin Forms to MAUI. There are some things that are going to be hard to do because what MAUI is doing is trying to bring in that single project architecture. So you might have resources and fonts that are specific to iOS or Android. Those you might have to do a little bit by hand, but for the most part, the project structure, how the app gets bootstrapped and rendered, all of that should be done. Much of the hard work should be done by the Upgrade Assistant. So envision by the time MAUI is out, you will have a .NET Upgrade Assistant that takes your existing Xamarin Forms apps and moves them over to MAUI. And we will most likely piggyback off this. So we actually have a very nice desktop conversion wizard, which uses the try-convert, which uses the .NET Upgrade Assistant, and we can move your WinForms applications, your WPF applications to run on .NET 5 to .NET 6. And we will kind of switch over the DLLs and the project structure. So yeah, we work very closely with Microsoft to make sure you can migrate your apps nicely. So hopefully that answers your initial question, but this is where things are. This is something that went out just this week. So if you are on MAUI, or if you just want to tinker around, like I realize I'm starting off with something that is still in preview, but this is exciting stuff. This is what the future will hold for us. So you can see that we now support preview 8, and there are a bunch of new things we're adding. So this is let's actually go over to Telerik.com, and I can show you where things are. So you drill down here to .NET MAUI, and everything is open for you. It's an open preview, so hit that try now button and you will get all of the bits, and lots of controls in here. We are rapidly increasing the number of controls we have because we know XAML, we know how to do this stuff, and we work with the new handler architecture, the new compatibility architectures to move the controls over nicely from the ground up for .NET MAUI. But for me, the big news, and again, I've had lots of conversations with enterprises where you are maybe considering modernizing your applications. Maybe you have investments in WPF, maybe you have investments in Xamarin Forms, and you're wanting to reach more platforms, and you're looking at MAUI. So for the first time, we're actually very excited to be able to, I mean, sure, we have other controls, like the numeric input controls, new layouts, but we have full support for macOS now. Now, when I say full, there are some things we are still working out, but this is a big jump because in .NET MAUI, the WinUI stuff, it's kind of given because we have WinUI controls. We know how to render on WinUI. Mac is a whole new kind of frontier for a lot of us because now we are kind of leaning on Apple. With Mac Catalyst, we are making the jump from UIKit for iOS to AppKit for desktop applications, and we are trying to make that jump seamless for you as well. So single code base that runs on both mobile and desktop. So if you want to play around with this, I want to show you this quickly. Start here from Telerik UI for MAUI, get the bits, and if you do, this is how it kind of ends up looking like. There is an installer for both Windows and Mac. I'm on my Mac here for the .NET MAUI and the Xamarin bits, and then I'm going to switch over to Windows. But it's going to install wherever you want it to install. For me, it's in my documents repository here, and you will notice that I have had preview bits for MAUI for some time. This is the latest, and we are starting to use like semantic versioning, so it kind of gives you an idea that we are starting to get serious, that this is going to be something we want to do moving forward in terms of versioning. So all your binaries are there for each platform, and everything is one NuGet package, so you can bring in the bits. And right here in the examples, we actually redid this SDK application entirely. So let me show you this real quick. And I am on my Mac here, so I'm going to pull up a terminal. Make this bigger. Hopefully you can see it. Let's bump up the text. Before you try any of this, again, keep in mind lots of preview bits here and there, so you have to make sure you have your dependencies right. And again, I falter at times because there is Xcode, there is Android, there is .NET, so a lot of dependencies. But on the Mac side of things, like the story on Windows is actually better because you have Visual Studio 2022 Preview 4, which has the .NET MAUI templates right there. So it's much more visual, but it's using the same command line tools. On the Mac side, VS 2022 for Mac is coming. There's a private preview that you can sign up for, but a lot of the UI has been worked on, so the UI is not getting, it's not at par with Windows. But again, command line tools work. So the first thing I'll do is do .NET just to kind of list what you have, right? So here you can see that I've had everything from 3.0 all the way to from .NET 6. But preview 1 onwards, which was back in February, preview 7, and then out here is RC1, which is the latest .NET 6 bits. And this is so nice because it's not the .NET framework. It's just a folder. You can blow it away. You can re-get it. You can include this as a part of your applications. It's real nice. Then the next thing you want to do is make sure you have MAUI check come in and install all the bits for you. Once you do, if I go to .NET New, just to kind of new up a new application, and if I Let's see if I can do a list. No, I'm not typing right. There we go. So these are all the like the file new project templates that you have, right? Same as what you have in Visual Studio, except this is command line. So right in here, you have your iOS application, you have your Android applications, you have the Blazor stuff, and you have all of the .NET MAUI stuff. So MAUI app, Blazor app, which is the hybrid thing we talked about, comment app, content page, lots of different templates that are starting to light up. You're actually seeing more here than you see in Visual Studio 2022. So this is nice. So you want to have all of this stuff. But since we're already on this folder for the Telerik bits, I keep forgetting this, so I keep going back to the MAUI documentation. Which again, if you're starting up, look for .NET MAUI. Hang on one second. I'm going to change my resolution here. I think I might be too zoomed in for my good. Scale. No, I think default is fine. Okay, I will zoom in case you folks can't see. So VS 2022, like I said, check out the documentation and see how things are shaping up. You have those templates in VS 2022 to kind of start things off. On a Mac, it's just command line for now. So if I go to .NET CLI, you're going to see you can do a .NET New MAUI, and then you can do a .NET Restore. What we're going to do is try running this app, and it needs the target framework for now, which is Net 6 for iOS. So we're going to go in here, maybe clear that, and do a .NET build. So what it's going to try doing is build our Telerik UI control suite and the project, and try deploying it on the most generic iOS simulator that you can find. And I have Xcode 13, which is out of preview now. So is iOS 15, and the Apple events have happened. So the iPad mini is the newest iPad thing to join our family, 6th generation. So now you see .NET 6, and now you see the new app. This is the SDK style browser application, which has all of our UI right in here. So this is Telerik UI for .NET MAUI with all of the UI that you can start playing around with, and it works exactly the same way on iOS and Android, and as we shall see on desktop as well. So again, I don't need to show you all of this, but you know how to play around. All your QR codes are here. Last release, we did the Swiss QR code, which is great for EU payment systems. So that's getting some love. All of the charts and graphs are here. Just take a look at how many charts we don't count every chart as a component, but there's like a dozen right here. So your area charts are here. So are your bar charts and spline charts, you name it, horizontal stacked bars. It's all there. This is the the charts and the graphs that you love from Telerik. They're all here, lighting up things for .NET MAUI. More things here. Data grid. This is something obviously enterprises and all of you love data grids, because this one's a super simple example. But this is a full data grid. It's just to kind of get you an example of how to play around with this. But you have a data grid that's full featured, does filtering, sorting, everything that you envision a data grid from us to do. It does all of that. So you can kind of drill down. The list view is brand new. This is, again, just look at the number of examples we have on just the list view. This is just the getting started experience, just a list of things, but then it has all the different layouts, all the different ways for each view to scroll and group and load on demand, and have MVVM support with commanding. Everything is ready for you to use. So again, take a look around the segmented UI, wrap layout, everything is new. The numeric input is also new. This is a beautiful control that just does the up and down in its simplest form, but then it can do a whole lot more. So that's just Telerik UI for .NET MAUI running on iOS. So let me close this, okay? And I'm not going to change any line of code here, but what I will do is grab this, which is now taking the same code and doing a build on Mac Catalyst, right? So it's going to do its thing, and now we're going to cross over the bridge from UIKit to AppKit, and you are going to see eventually this little guy here, right there. So this is .NET Telerik UI for .NET MAUI running on a Mac as a desktop app. Now, I mean, we can also take the same app and run on WinUI. That's nothing new. We have been doing this for some time, but this took some engineering work, as you can imagine. And again, there are some things we are working through, but you can see the promise. And I want to pause here and just acknowledge like, I am excited about this, because for the first time you're seeing UI that is the same exact XAML C# UI that renders natively on iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. So this is a pretty big deal. Again, the same app, same code, just runs everywhere now. So that's .MAUI. So play around with it and see what else you want to see. Give us feedback on our feedback portals, and tell us what else you want to see happening on the MAUI front.
It's a great segue to a question that we have in our questions, Sam. I'll read it verbatim. Do you think most of the controls currently available in Xamarin will also be included in MAUI in the future?
Yes, absolutely. And we would like to do more. So we are not there yet. Again, keep in mind, like when we look at like WPF or WebForms or MVC for Ed, and people ask, does Blazor have feature parity? It's not quite yet sometimes, because some things are very new. So MAUI doesn't have as much as what Xamarin Forms has, but eventually, yes, it will, and probably have more. So yeah, absolutely.
And to your point you made before the question, if you go to feedback.telerik.com, you can help us get more insight as to what components that you'd like to see make it from Xamarin to MAUI, and help us prioritize those by posting some feedback, and people will upvote those items.
Absolutely. All right, I'm watching my time here. I'm close to half an hour, and I want to get to desktop, but let's take a quick look at Xamarin here. And again, folks, you have the source code for all of this, so I don't need to walk you through code. So just take a look around as to what's happening. And again, you don't even need to install anything, particularly for Xamarin. And as we shall see, even for like WPF or WinForms, there are apps in the stores that will tell you exactly how to run all of our UI within a simple app. So now what I'm showing you here is Xamarin, right? So if you do a search on Telerik in the app stores, you're going to likely end up on this app. But this one, I'm only showing you iOS, but there's also Android. And look at that, my simulators is iPhone 13 Pro Max, which is like, this is iPhone ordering season. I'm like Team Blue. Everyone's updating cool gadgets everywhere, right? And Windows came out with a whole bunch of cool gadgets as well, with the Duo and all the fun stuff. But let's quickly run this thing. And what's nice is like this app has like specific platform specific folders for iOS or Android and Windows, but this one here is like pretty much everything is done in the .NET Standard library. So we try to stay away from the platform specific projects. This is all shared and generic code, so that's real nice. So this is again the app that you can actually play around, install it on your phones or iPads. This one is something we did a couple of releases back, dark mode support. So now you have it enabled, just one flag switch, and you can read the app theme and do it. I like staying on light for some of the demos. This is the barcode demo, which I talked about, and somewhere in here, it has the new flag. That's the data matrix barcode. So again, if you're in manufacturing, this is for you. And what's also nice is we will show you like the code on and how we render this. So you don't need to open up Visual Studio to see that, which you absolutely can. But if you just want to play around with the app, like on an iPhone or an iPad, maybe you can look at the code on how we do that. So the barcode, the data matrix is new for the barcode. This is the calendar, and the day view here, you'll notice that this is September 29th. That's today. Right, it's apparently Alex's birthday, but we started at 12 a.m. But if I scroll down somewhere here, oh, lunch with Sam, look at that, it's almost lunchtime. So like 12:28 p.m. I'm on East Coast time, right? See that red line here? That is the current time indicator, right? And you can make this look like however you want. Make it green, make it big and heavy. That's up to you. But you have that time indicator, and that's just a nice way to kind of look at your schedule and see where you are in the day. So that's brand new. And also other things in the calendar, we keep on adding love to it. Little more things here. Let's see if I can go down to, what else do we want to say? The rich text editor was brand new in terms of some of the features. So this is the rich text editor, okay? And if I go in here onto the first look, this is like envisioning that you have, you're composing an email or returning to like a blog post. You have all of these menus that pop up, and like if you click on text, you have context menus that are text specific. But then if you click on images, you have other things that you can do. Now you can resize, you can cut, copy, you can bring in HTML, you can delete, you can do all of that. I think you see better examples. Oops, I came all the way out. So let's go back in. And we'll let the app restart again. And let's go to actually rich text editor is right here. We're going to go into the custom image picker. This is an example where if you're letting your users like type something, so if I go in here and this is a custom like an emoji thing, right? So when I click on that, like these are images that we are adding explicitly. So these don't need to come from the device gallery. You can just add up your own images and let the user post whatever emojis or whatever else that you want. So you have full control over how you want to work with images in the rich text editor, whether you be editing it or adding stuff from the device gallery or adding your own gallery, you can do it all. So for you to look around this, everything is up here. So if you drill down into QSF, which is the solution, I'm going to maybe make this a little bigger so you can read better. So everything here is in examples, right? So we looked at the barcode example for that matter. So barcode control, that's the data matrix example. There's likely a view model there that's supporting the backend data, and then the XAML and the C# is all right there. So I won't waste your time looking into it, but you have all the code. This is what you download when you install the bits, and the source code is right there for you to look at. This is actually a classic example of, we talked about the MVC patterns. Like this is an example which is, it's a lot of different view models, probably dozens and dozens of view models, different types of behaviors and controls and converters all in together, but it actually does not use an MVC framework. It is just MVC is a design pattern. So we can keep our code nice and clean without actually using a framework. And if you wanted to look at an example of a real world store app, here's your example, okay? So that's with Xamarin. Again, I can go on and on about Xamarin and MAUI because that's where I spend most of my time, but I'm excited. And again, Xamarin is here to stay for a long, long time. So if you are building mobile apps today, absolutely feel free to keep doing so in Xamarin and Xamarin Forms. If you want, they will upgrade very nicely to .NET MAUI, or just keep on using Xamarin Forms until Microsoft says it's time to move on. All right, so that's Xamarin Forms and all the mobile stuff, right? So let's switch gears. But actually, I think we might have a quick poll for you before we switch. All right, I'll take a breather. Quick poll here for you folks. So I think we're trying to gauge where you are in your journey. Do you want to keep on doing Xamarin, or do you want to start tinkering with .NET MAUI right now, or eventually migrate when things are production ready?
So Sam, I am from the web minded personality. So can you clear something up for me?
Sure.
If I plan on developing with Xamarin, does that mean I'm using Xamarin in the future or continue with what I have now? Isn't .NET MAUI kind of the successor to Xamarin? So what does that mean exactly?
It absolutely is. So it is the next evolution. So yeah, I think we are done with the poll here, folks. So let's see your responses first. Going once, going twice. All right, and we're back in camera. Okay. Okay, so many of you don't have mobile plans, but again, if your customers are asking, maybe you want to come up with a mobile strategy. But again, a lot of you are planning on experimenting with .NET MAUI. So to Ed's point, yes, it is absolutely the successor to Xamarin Forms, and eventually, like once .NET MAUI is out of general availability, like the code is exactly the same. It's like if you did Xamarin Forms, it's the same exact thing for you in .NET MAUI. You will have another 12 months of support from Microsoft. Beyond that, you're going to have to cut over and move to .NET MAUI. But again, like support ending doesn't always mean like your apps have to end or migrate on that very day. You will just not get as many updates or innovations on Xamarin Forms. But in terms of like the dev experience, it is the exact same thing, right? So it is the same code, same single structure. It just reaches more platforms with a lot more confidence. If that makes sense.
the terminology of Xamarin will be changing to MAUI in the future.
Yeah. It's a branding thing. You might call it that, but it is also meant to give you a lot more confidence and address some of the pain points of Xamarin development today.
Excellent.
All right. I have 26 minutes more to talk about all things desktop. Let me see. Where's my mouse? All right. Let's talk about desktop. Yeah, this is again the bread and butter for so many enterprises, and it is kind of dear to heart for us because we have been doing this for the last 20 years, right? And it's incredible. I will show you something about WinForms that will just blow your mind because I sit back and I look at this, and I'm an old man. When I remember things that have started with WinForms back in like 2002, WPF started back in 2006, and I see those applications, those platforms run so seamlessly on the latest stack. It is amazing that those applications can be moved forward just as easily. But let's actually start with the latest and greatest stuff. But before we do that, because there are lots of different desktop strategies here, right? So one more poll for you folks. What are you using in terms of desktop? Because you have WinUI, that's the latest stack, which we'll talk about. You have WPF and WinForms, or do you mix and match? Or do you use anything else like Electron to bring your web stuff, or Blazor Hybrid to bring your web stuff? So tell us what you are doing right now, or maybe moving forward into next year. All right, going once, twice. Are we done? Oh, look at that. WinForms and WPF, quite a few of you. And none of you have desktop apps, that's totally cool. But if you are considering desktop, let's talk about some of your solutions and some of your options, okay? Let me see, you can still see my screen, I hope, yeah. All right, let's talk about the most latest one. Okay, I'm going to maximize my screen here. WinUI. Now, some of the confusion comes from the fact that you have actually a lot of different ways to do desktop, especially on Windows. So which one do you pick? It kind of depends on where you are in the journey. If you are starting new, like if you don't have any baggage, and if you just want to come in and do the latest Windows development, by all means, go WinUI. It is the latest Windows stack, full UX framework that sits on top of both Win32 apps and Universal Windows Platform, .NET Native, and Win32. So you have fluent design, design system inspired controls, and everything is good. That's what the store apps are mostly written in. But you can also target desktop or legacy desktop in other ways. So our suite, UI for WinUI, this is getting a lot of love, as you can imagine, because it's the newest UI suite. It builds right on top of WinUI 3 benefits, so runs on both UWP and Win32. And right now, as we actually sit on our R3 release, we are reaching, again, semantic versioning version 0.5, right? So things are getting very, very good here. But compared to like R2 last release, we have actually had 2 other releases in between to reach version 0.3 and 0.4. So those were also feature packed. So some of these controls like MAUI suites or WinUI, we actually churn a little bit faster. So we have stuff coming in between the releases. So it is absolutely production ready, fluent design system, MVVM support, accessibility, localization, as everything that you imagine. We have a couple of brand new apps for you to kind of play around with. So I'll show you that. If you're new to WinUI, again, we have been doing XAML for quite some time, right? So we know WPF XAML, we know UWP XAML, so we have all the expertise in the engineering to bring it over to WinUI, but do it from ground up, so we are reaping the benefits, the performance benefits. So this suite right now has pretty much everything you can think of in terms of a full-featured enterprise suite, data grids, schedulers, a variety of charts and graphs, different types of gauges, radial or linear gauges, and lots of performance tuning. You have it all. One of my favorite ones is the ribbon view, which again you don't have anywhere else. It's just a beautiful way of organizing your app's navigation and giving the user all of the things that they need right up front that they can collapse and expand as desired. We also have, like I said, the interim releases. We had version 0.3 and 0.4. So some pretty heavy hitting controls. I won't have time to cover all of it, but I'm just listing them out, like date time pickers, segmented control, like the looping list, if you have like the time and the destinations looping over it, data form, which is for every app. It's forms over data a lot of times, and validations, and everything is just built in, easy to data bind. Grid splitter is the one on the right hand side, the extreme corner here. If you want to throw up a grid and let your users have full control over how the spacing works out between rows and columns, that's your thing. And again, like I'm saying, I'm not listing out all of the controls, but all of this is now baked in because we are at 0.5. So let's look at what are the absolute newest things in the R3 release. There is a new masked input. And again, we have done these things for WPF or for WinForms over the years, but now they're coming over to WinUI, and we are using the things that we have learned to give you the most latest controls that work. So masked input is for you to kind of format and constrain the user input as you're doing so. Immediate validations, and it's fully customizable. Lots of inbuilt masks, so hopefully you shouldn't have to do anything custom, but if you wanted to, you could. So date time inputs, numeric email inputs, social security numbers, phones, IP, and if nothing fits, then you go headfirst into regular expressions and you customize this to your heart's content. And masked input is here for all of your input validation needs. We have a brand new mapping component. Now this thing is sweet because it lets you switch which provider you want to use. Bing works beautifully, but if you want to use something else, absolutely. I'm not a mapping expert, but KML is a standard. So if you want to import and export, you have an easier time. You can pan and zoom very smoothly, and you can add your own shapes. You can add your own routes to the map. We have geocoding, and we can do virtualization through some services. So if you are zooming and panning across different parts of the earth, we can kind of look ahead and make sure the map is always very responsive. So very excited about a rich mapping solution for all of your geographical needs, if that's what your WinUI apps are up to. There is a radial menu, which like these are things I absolutely love about desktop because it's just so smooth and so rich. You want your apps to be very elegant and yet have easy to find navigation, easy to find context menus, and that's what this radial menu is for. It's very flexible. It's a completely dynamic UI container. You get to put whatever you want in it, and you get to nest your items and have different ways of triggering it, different selection modes, and again, full MVVM support. You can customize the colors and everything, which I will show you in a bit. So you have a radial menu that just works everywhere. Beautiful. We have an expander control, which is again for you to save space, right? If you have a lot of stuff, you can collapse those things and embed content. These are just containers. You can put whatever you want in it. You can control the opening direction and closing directions and how the content aligns, and you can customize the icons, and some of the animations are also built in as to how they open and close. So the RAD expander is here. We have a couple of new data visualizations. Now these are not fully like the full-fledged charts, but these are meant to kind of be reused. These are lightweight and they're very performant and smaller infographics. So we have a RAD data bar, which is like the different types of bars, and they have stuff on either side to show you like the range. And then we have a spark line, which is again different types of spark lines, so lines, scatter points, area or column charts, and these are things you can embed within other bigger controls to show like trends of data over time. So again, very easy to data bind these things, and you have tooltip support. So a couple of new data visualization controls here. And this is what I was talking about. We have an examples app, which I'll show you. This is where we showcase all of the WinUI controls. And then we also have a CRM app, which is the dark mode app here on the right. This is brand new, and it's actually using, again, full-on MVVM. It brings in Prism as an MVVM library. And it kind of shows you like a handful, like a dozen or so of our Telerik UI controls for WinUI. Shoved into a real world app with lots and lots of data, and you get to see the performance, you get to see the data visualization with the spark lines and the charts and graphs. So very real world app, so you folks can look around and see how we are building apps and maybe get some ideas and inspirations for your apps. Okay, let's I will again jump out altogether for all of my desktop stuff for the demo. So let's talk about the other ones as well. So WPF and WinForms, right? They run literally everywhere, and I love this because sure, they were meant for .NET Framework, but they have been able to run on .NET 3.1. long-term support, and on .NET 5, and on the latest and greatest .NET 6 bits, which is amazing. So very exciting that they are future-facing. Let's talk about WPF real quick. So WPF, again, like WPF and WinForms are some of our richest UI suites because they have been around for a long time, and we have been able to put in engineering investments towards these things. So there is a brand new badge component, which is something we have had for like Xamarin and other suites. Now it's there for WPF. It's a great way for you to draw the user's attention with some sort of a notification or updates, and you can customize however you want your badge to look like. In terms of the positioning, in terms of the content and the background and the animations, everything is customizable. So there's a brand new badge control. This is new. We did a couple of different Office themes the last few releases, but again, if you have accessibility needs in mind, there's a high contrast theme now for Office 2019. So as you can see in some of the screenshots here, really high contrast colors that we're using across the grid, the scheduler of the card view. So take a look at that. And a few more things. The rich text editor, like we saw with Xamarin, also keeps getting more updates and love here. We did shapes last release, but now we can do text within the shapes. And mentions is a cool thing. So, excuse me, you can trigger like pop-ups based on whatever the user is typing in and take extra actions. Like you can have them choose between a list of suggestions and be able to trigger that pop-up based on whatever they're typing. The RAD expression editor is a way for you to parse expressions without actually showing much of the UI. So think about Lambda expressions, anything you want to compute and just be able to show the expression, the end result of the expression in your UI without showing any other GUI. So you have that as well. More stuff here. So there is we've had the RAD chart view, which does a whole other types of charts, but the box plot series is new. For you to show a box and then a range and numerical data through some quartiles. If you are on VS 2022, well, actually on the last VS as well, you have suggested actions from the XAML designer. This is where you can just like click on a grid or a chart or a cell, and you get some extra options from the light bulbs on exactly how to configure that. So you have that. And document processing libraries, so lots of updates in terms of how we process WPF or PDF and Word and Excel. And that's kind of shared across WPF and WinForms and Xamarin. WinForms, this is what I like, and I'll show you a slide here, which is really fun for me. But we have had this for, I think WinUI had it first, and WPF has had it. We have a task board now, which is, I mean, a lot of people call it like the Kanban board. So this is your way of letting your users manage their tasks in an agile format. That's easy. So it's everything that a Kanban board is. You have tasks, you have columns, you can drag and drop, you have different types of users with access rights, you can tag things based on certain topics, you can change the selection, touch support, everything is built in for you. So if you want to give folks within a WinForms application like a Trello app, you have a task board that's fully capable of doing so. We have a brand new filter. You can
combine those things with your Gantts and your schedulers and really go bananas.
Exactly. Now, speaking of bananas, like this is also something that kind of rides on top of everything else, and I love this because when you go to like a vacation planner or anything where you're trying to create a report, you have lots and lots of filters, right? And those filters are tied to the exact data that you're looking at, and you want to customize exactly what you're looking at. So the RAD FilterView is a standalone component that can either be bound to its own data source and do its own filtering, or it can actually work with any of the other grids or charts and be able to filter that. So you're letting the users have a very user-friendly UI towards building those custom filter descriptors. And again, it's fully customizable and localization is built in. So throw all the data you want at it. It's very, very fast and performance tuned. Now, let's take a look at some of the other ones here. A few other things here and there. So the RAD page view gets hierarchy support in the processing or in the navigation on the left, document processing updates. But take a look at those last three things here. WinForms, Telerik UI for WinForms, which again, it's about close to 20 years old now, but it runs smoothly on .NET 6 RC1. It works seamlessly with Visual Studio 2022 Preview 4, and this is not even out yet. Windows 11 is coming October 5th, we are already ready with the rounded corners, right? So take a look at this in terms of your enterprise workflow. And if you have WinForms investments, you are in a good place because everything works with the latest runtimes, with the latest OS. So to me, this is really amazing that we can bring WinForms and make it run on such modern stacks. Okay, I have 10 minutes left. All right, so I am going to rush a little bit to show you some demos, but while I'm pulling this up, Ed, any questions I can answer?
I don't see any new ones that our engineers haven't answered directly. We've got a lot of Blazor envy here, so like the radial menu, everybody thought was really cool. People are asking for some of these things in Blazor as well. So just a lot of love in general.
Yeah, I hear you. And it's when you look at some of the desktop UI, it's easy to just want everything in Blazor, but you just have to keep in mind like the maturity of the platforms. And yes, things are coming for Blazor, but you can't have them all in one go. That's why we have roadmaps. All right, I have 9 minutes left, and Windows box is coming up. I do have a Windows box that sits under my desk, but I like to keep it in a VM because then I can just move with my laptop and have everything ready. Okay, so first thing is WPF, right? And again, I can show you this stuff in Visual Studio, but it's just easier to look at this in an app, and you can download this app. So go to the Windows App Store and search for Telerik, and this is the app that you're going to find. You will see that this is running R3 2021. This is the new badge control that I talked about. So different types of badges, and you can see how they look different, and you can also see the code. So exactly how we rendered this. This will look a little busy here, but I can zoom in. So all the XAML that we used to render that, it's right there for you to take a look at. And if I can show you the configurator here, you'll see that I can change the anchor position to left or right. I can change the badge type to all of these defaults that are available, like remove is that, or I can do completely like content only. This one says 1, 2, 3. I can say Ed here. So it just works out just fine. And I can change the foreground, the background. It is your place to show whatever you want in your badge, right? So take a look at that. Some new things here, the chart view. Like I said, that will likely have the new box plot. So again, take a look at all these examples, like just the sheer number of charts and the features that we have. This box plot series is brand new, right? The rich text box, I'm probably going to run out of time here, but it gets those support for those mentions, support for special types of shapes, and being able to put text in those shapes. And actually, let me go into the card view, and just to kind of quickly show you, when you talk about like the Fluent design system and all of these design systems and wanting to build apps for the store, you can do that from WPF and WinForms. Like take a look at our theming here, right here. You can do a Fluent theme right here. This is a Fluent light, this is a Fluent dark. You see how things change, like we can change our entire UI. And this is the new Office 2019 high contrast theme. So you can see like some of the colors change. And if I go to maybe the grid view and the scheduler, it's even more apparent. Like if I change it back to the high contrast, you can see how we specifically use colors that are high contrast. So take a look at all of this. If I go to explore all the controls, you see like the 150 plus controls we have just for WPF. So it's for you to look around, and all of the code is there for you to look as well. Really quick, Windows Forms. And we'll give it a second. There we go. So that's Windows Forms here. This is, again, you can see it's running R3 2021. So all of the 140 controls are right here. But the new ones here are the Taskboard, which Windows is not doing a good job with the scaling because my fonts are really big. But once I shrink this down, you can see this is a full-on Taskboard, right? So it has the tags, it has the users, and I can drag and drop, and I can go to town however I want. So this is like a full-on Kanban Trello board right in your WinForms applications, and it's fully customizable with however you want to make it look with themes and also the kind of the features that you want. The filter view, this is, oh, it's going to look real small here, but I'm going to try to zoom in here. So here is a grid, and this is the filter view, which you can put it right next to the grid or chart, but you can also make it work with any of your generic data. This one here, if I filter by like first name, you can only see like the first name Janet only shows up here. So it's very relevant search based on the data that you have and you're binding to, and you can make this work on any data source or any other data aware Telerik UI, right? So I'm running out of time here, but all of your 150 plus WinForms UI is right here in this app, along with the code that we use to show that off, right? So take a look at that, and I will open up Visual Studio here as I have 4 minutes left. All right, we can do this. Visual Studio cooperates with me. You can obviously do this in VS 2022, but this is the stable production release of VS 2019. My machine has had a long day here, but let's try to open up this one app here. Okay, it wants to start in admin mode. Yes. And the WinUI solution. Like I said, this one, you can get the source code for this. If you go to Telerik.com and download the WinUI bits, we give you the source code for this example app. And then in the docs is also a list where you can find the other apps like the CRM application. We have like a color theme generator and a picker. So that's really nice. So this one here has the references here will tell you if I zoom in here, it is running on the latest Telerik stuff and also Microsoft Project Reunion and Universal Windows Platform. So this is the UWP version, but you can also run this on desktop as well. So if I go ahead and run this real quick, let's see how quickly it builds and deploys. I have 3 minutes left. Okay, it didn't like the build. Let's do another build. Let's do a rebuild. So while it's building, Ed, how do you feel about desktop coming along and being able to run on the latest .NETs?
So all the Xamarin MAUI or the Xamarin MAUI, the MAUI stuff looks really cool. I know there is a Blazor feature here in several ways that you haven't talked about because it's all very preview stuff still. So there's a there's the XAML approach. There's the Blazor mobile bindings, which is something that is still in previews and will remain there for a little bit yet. That sounds really interesting to me. And then of course there's Blazor hybrid. That's a whole other thing. There's so many cool like experiments going on in that space. I can't wait to try them out.
Yeah, Ed and me can talk about this stuff all day long because as you can see, like you can run desktop on the latest .NETs. If you want to keep on doing WinForms and WPF, you're more than welcome to. Don't let anybody tell you that those are legacy apps or you need to migrate right now. But if you want to keep on running on the latest .NETs, you can. But if you have parts of your team doing Blazor or other web stuff for that matter, any other Spark framework, you can embed things a lot more nowadays going forward with some of the latest web views. So this is exciting stuff, and I have 2 minutes left. Let's see if Visual Studio finishes the build so I can run this. And while it's doing that, this is what I'm actually running. So folks, you can run this on your own. So you head out to Telerik.com and you go to WinUI and you hit the big try now button. You're going to get the builds and the binaries as well as this sample app that I'm about to show you. And then the CRM apps are also listed here in the docs somewhere. Oh yeah, build succeeded. Okay, 1 minute left. We're going to run this. So just like I showed you with the Xamarin app, all of the controls are nicely laid down in examples, and we have helpers and we have resources, but everything is pretty apparent, and you can drill down and see exactly how we are rendering some of this UI. Come on, Visual Studio, I'm waiting on you to finish up and deploy just this one time.
So are we still in VM land?
We are.
Sam?
We are. Yeah. This is running on a Parallels VM. So It takes a little bit of resources. The fan kicks on, but I have all my windows with me wherever I go. So I have a desktop tower, but that can't move, while this one here does. But it's also slow. This is I'm also screen sharing. So it is really trying hard to do that one build, and deploy succeeded. Yay! Last like on the hour. Give it a second. Okay, there you go. Right, so this is the example set. This is redone, and you can check out the new UI. That's the data bar. And again, for each of the UI, there is a first look. So you can see how the data bars look like. That's the new lightweight UI I talked about. Expander is exactly what it sounds like. You can expand and collapse, and you can control how they expand, like the animations, left, right, top, bottom. You can do that. This mapping control is beautiful. So here is a sales dashboard that kind of shows you the breakdown based on like the salesperson or the region, and the map moves. But you can also go down and configure other things about the map, like how you bind to it, how you can have a cluster of things to it. You can do routing, like if you have point-to-point routing, we can do turn by turn. Again, we depend on the map provider to give us that information, but we are here to render that, and you can add your own shapes to it. The masked input, again, this is the first look, but right away you can see like the phone numbers, like the emails, and it's immediate validation. So if I start typing here, if I tab out, it tells me that, hey, this is not an email address. Same with IP, same with any type of masking or regex that you want. It's all right there for you. The radial menu is beautiful. This is what I talked about. So envision anything where you want the users to come and find your stuff, right click, here's the radial menu, and it's completely configurable to whatever you want. And it looks exactly the way you want, because there is a configurator right here. If I go in here, customization, you can see you can change the inner and the outer radius. You can change the tooltips and the colors. Everything is up to you, right? So everything is here for you to take a look at. The spark lines are new as well. These are, again, the shorter lines, different types of points of plotting, and all of your document processing libraries are here as well. So take a look. That's WinUI. That's our latest Windows UI stack. And with that, we are over time. So I'm going to go back here to my slides one last time. Ed, are there any pressing things we can talk about right now, Q&A wise? Ed, have you frozen? No, you're still here.
I'm trying to get off of mute. I don't know the UI here very well. So people enjoying the demos, think they're cool. I would say just keep an eye on what we're doing here with .NET 6 coming soon. We are very tightly aligned with our Microsoft counterparts. So we're looking forward to .NET Conf, which is coming up in November. And we're keeping our tooling in step with those preview releases, so we can be all in on the new bits when they come out.
Absolutely. And if you want to come and hang out with us, I think I had a thing for our Twitch stream. Yeah, maybe right here. So this is where Ed and me are on a couple of times a week. We live stream, and you can come and see us kind of tinker around. Like Ed said, like we are kind of really, the whole landscape for .NET developers has evolved so much in the last few years. And like just in that last hour, you saw me go all in on Mac with iOS and Android, and Mac Catalyst, all with .NET code. And then we can flip the switch. We can come over to Windows and do all of the same stuff for Windows and Android. But then if you have desktop investments in WinUI or WPF or WinForms, you are in a very happy place, because everything runs on the latest stack and the UI keeps getting better. So we're excited, and thank you so much for hanging out with us. Like I said, that's Ed and me on our social media, where you can come and ping us anytime. But also our teams are here. Big thank you to them for hanging out in the chat rooms and answering questions. Use the hashtag #HeyTelerik if you have any any following questions, and we'd love to get back. Once again, if you are using our stuff, thank you so much for your support. Hopefully you see that every release we are giving you more to celebrate, more power to you, more to be successful. And if you are new to the family, welcome, and hopefully you can see all the different things we can do for you across all of .NET with web and mobile and desktop. So with that, I think that's it from us. And thank you one more time. And we shall see you tomorrow for the productivity webinar, or come and hang out with us anytime on the streams. And yeah, that's it from me and Ed.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you.